but like they're just Norwegians love waffles.
But are they like Belgian waffles? Are they like the egg waffles, or are they like potato waffles? Or, yeah, what's are they potato and
Well,
egg waffles?
weirdly, Norwegians put all sorts of messed up things in their waffles, but generally it's just a flour with egg and sugar and that's a bit about it. And then and cardamom is a big thing. They put cardamom in it.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Mm.
So they love their waffles here, but don't mess with them. Like you can't put any weird shit on them because people will flip their lid.
So
So
what
Well, I
would be the
mean,
standard? What would be the
yeah.
standard serving on it?
standard is jam. Yeah. And if you sour cream as well. So like jam and sour cream.
So no weird shit, but jam and sour cream's perfectly fine.
Well, that's exactly. You can't fuck with tradition here because it's very serious here. You can't mess with it. It's not like the UK, which is a multicultural melting pot of awesomeness and culinary delights. It's tradition, and you got to deal with that stuff. So, yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
Hello,
where do we
everybody.
go from that?
What a way to start. And straight away, we actually got a question straight away from Rob Prickly Sauce. He says, "Have you ever tried blood pancakes?" So,
I have not, but I've heard about them. They make them in the north, I think, of Norway. But they eat all sorts of weird stuff up the north. So, yeah.
I've heard about the kind of there's a tinned fish that is kind of stored almost with like caustic soda
Strumming?
that you have to like wash for like 3 days before it's edible. Otherwise,
Yeah,
it's just
that's
going to kind of burn your
Edible is
mouth
a
out.
relative term there.
that's
Yeah.
that's Swedish, I think. That's the
Yeah.
surströmming
That's
they
the
call
one.
it. And yes, it's like you can't open the tin in the house. Well, you can, but if you wanted to stink like shit for like 3 days,
It hurts, yeah.
then open it up in your house. It's nasty.
I think some people like open it up underwater as well, just to try and contain it slightly.
Look, to be honest, I've never tried it, never smelt it,
Yeah.
but I'm up for it.
I mean, I appreciate we're now talking about cuisine from another country that's also not the country you're originally from either. Why don't you know all these things about this thing that you've never had?
Yeah, I know Vegemite on toast. That's about it.
Or not one of the
That's something you can
variations
get
of
easily
Marmite.
up there.
Well, Vegemite is the original Marmite, isn't it? Wasn't Vegemite before Marmite?
I
That's a
don't
good
know.
question.
Someone's got to Google that now, surely.
Yeah, I'd imagine
That's-
the answer will appear in the chat at some point.
JP Jamie Page wants to know if you've ever tried spotted dick.
Yes, I think ages ago when I was a young teenager in the UK, I came and tried it. I didn't know what it was.
We should say then, for the international listeners, that there's the British dessert, not the venereal disease.
Yeah, it's like a kind of a cake with kind of currants and
Currants
raisins
and
in,
stuff, yeah.
served
Yeah.
hot with custard. Yeah, I haven't had it for years. I think it got put off in school dinners. It used to be kind of a regular for school dinners in the kind of 1970s and 1980s. That's enough to put anyone off any particular dish.
School dinners will put you off food in general, I think. Won't they?
Yes, yeah, they would indeed. It's yeah, curry. I got curry sauce on chips. I know some people like it, but used to get it for school dinners. It's like, no, never again. No, thank you. Don't want stuff like that.
Curried sauce with chips.
Curry sauce on chips. Yeah, very popular in the UK.
Is it?
Yeah.
Wow. I never thought that. Like gravy and chips?
Yeah.
Bang
Yeah,
on.
you can have that as
Happy
well.
with-
Yeah,
happy
people
with
do
that. But like curried sauce and
Yeah.
chips?
More like a Chinese curry as well, rather than specifically like Indian curry. It's
Really? Huh.
Yeah,
Yeah, so and it's just a sauce. So it's like a gravy rather than kind of with
yeah. It's
any kind of bits of
basically just
meat or vegetables in it.
spicy gravy, I suppose.
Yeah, yeah, I guess it was.
I mean, I know we at some point had 90% of the population as was vaguely occupied by Britain in some way. We're not a particularly civilized people by the sounds of it.
I didn't say a thing, Jamie. I didn't say anything.
Yeah, I was going to say we've got Australians and the British. Yeah, there's a certain relationship there, isn't there? Yeah.
There's a love-hate relationship, I think, isn't it? Like, it's a little bit like you get annoyed that you've got this like the Australian guy serving beer at your pub, but you're happy that it's him, not this like grumpy other dickhead that's like, yeah,
Yeah, happy it's
yeah,
not a Brit. Yeah,
yeah, basically.
but I mean, I suppose that's the ultimate irony as well. Is having like an Australian serving a lager in a pub, and asking for something like Foster's, thinking that you're being really fancy, asking this Australian for an Australian beer, and then finding out that it's actually brewed in Scotland, or
Well, no one drinks Foster's, so like
exactly.
no one. It's only idiots like yourselves who think it's Australian, and like I'm being Australian and drinking a Foster's. Like, well, actually,
Not quite.
What was the? There was another one that was popular in the 80s in the UK. 4X. Is it 4X?
Yeah,
yeah,
Well, that was a kind of Australian lager that supposedly was doing the. That did. I think it was that. I
4X
mostly
is
cider
from
or beer for me.
Queensland. Yeah,
Right.
4X is from Queensland, and it's yeah, it's all the same. Let's be honest, it all tastes like piss. So,
Yeah.
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 there's a certain length of beard where you stop drinking lager.
What length is that, Jamie? Please don't.
Any.
Yeah, if you've got a beard, it's got to be. Yeah, you've got to get your kind of your annual membership to Camera, and which is the campaign for Real Ale. Who kind of there's a book that lists all the good pubs with the good beers and things like that.
For the refined gentleman.
Yes, or the less refined sometimes. Yes.
Yeah, I definitely. I'm still just about nailing the homeless kind of look.
Well, that's what I go for every day, pretty much. And I'm pretty sure by Norwegian standards, I look extremely homeless. Some people, some people are just like, he's got 2 kids and he's taking them to school and he's got no shoes on. What's going on?
In Norway as well.
I went the other day to drop my kids off, and I was like, yeah, I'll walk barefoot. Yeah, screw it. I couldn't be bothered putting shoes on. And I had these looks at people, it was reasonably chilly, let's just say that, but it wasn't cold. But yeah.
So what's the
into
current
double
temperature?
figures?
Well, now it's starting to get a bit colder. Now it's sort of around about 5-6 degrees. So not super cold, but it'll get probably around 0 tonight and that sort of thing. And yeah, it's part and parcel of living in Norway. So
Yeah.
it's actually super nice having the seasons, the proper seasons, because when you, besides the pain in the ass of shoveling snow, it's it gives you an excuse to get in the garage and avoid people and life for a little bit until the sun comes out again, and then you're like, hey, it's summer, let's go do stuff and meet people and talk with people. So yeah,
I suppose the benefit of that is you're sort of limited to only about 2 or 3 days then as well, aren't you? Of having sun in Norway.
well, yeah, depending, like if you live on the west coast for sure. But yeah, I mean we live in the sunny part of Norway, which is a load of shite. But yeah, they say we here in the area where I live is supposedly the most sunny area of Norway, but it's not quite true, I don't think. But can't say that I complain there in summer. It's super nice here. So
Nice. Yeah, we've got weirdly. I think we've got a few like actual like proper Norwegians rather than transplanted Norwegians, sort of on the list. So it's weird to get an Aussie Norwegian on before any of the other Norwegians.
I've ruined it all for you guys. Sorry, guys.
Just dispel all the myths, drop all the secrets, and then
it can only go down from now.
Well, we'll get Rasmus on at some point, and that'll just spoil everything. So
Poor Rasmus.
Yeah.
It's a sign of affection that we rib him so much.
Yeah, exactly. He needs it to keep lively, you know.
Yeah, I mean, keep him down to earth is.
I have to say this waffling is really frustrating for me because I'm used to like such structure, you know, like in my podcast. Like I'm like, when are we doing this?
Well,
like,
you spend a lot of time preparing. Sure, we can talk about that because you've had that podcast now, Make Ideas Reality, for a couple of years. I mean, you took a bit of a break, but it's run for a couple of years now, hasn't it? And you've had quite a few guests on, but you put quite a lot of effort into your preparation, unlike us. And as we said before the chat, we do.
I mean, you
very
can
little
definitely tell the difference in the two.
Yeah, that's very true. I do put a lot of effort in because I overly just want to provide value for people because I think it's super important. Like people are going to invest time to sit down and listen to what I have to say or what my guest has to say, and I want that to be valuable for them. You know, I want them to walk away going, I got something from that. That was great. Or I didn't know that about that person. That's amazing. Now I know, like when I see him next time at a maker meetup, I'll be like, how's the, I don't know, rhubarb pie like here? And you knew that he loved rhubarb pie for some reason. It's just, that's what I want to do. And I know that if I don't do the work, then that generally doesn't happen. You know, you don't get that reaction from people because what I found too working with a lot of makers is they're not used to going on podcasts. They aren't used to talking openly. So it's a little, what I often do is I do like a pre-pod, what I call a pre-pod. And it's kind of like this where we just talk shit for about an hour to 2 hours. And what I'm doing is I'm getting a gauge. And often what happens is when they start talking, they start relaxing a bit, then they come up with the subject matter that they're really passionate about. And then that's what I use for going into the podcast as material. So, but I mean, the podcast has evolved over the last, 2 years? Yeah, 2 years with a bit of a break in the middle, about 6 months or 7 months, I think it was. Took a break in the middle and then, but it's evolved greatly. So it used to be a bit of a like, throw together sort of interview some people and see what hear their story. Now it's more designed towards getting a solid bit of information and an idea behind something forward so that it can help people in their own maker, life journeys, I guess you'd say too, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, like last month's podcast with Mark Justin, that something that really stood out to me is the fact that, he got a lot of advice from people that he loved and respected, and that kind of put him in a hole where he, really just couldn't deal with life. Suffered from massive anxiety attacks and panic attacks and just couldn't function, and then decided to flip his life upside down and get away from that advice that people would tell him to do, like play the safe, job and, stay in IT where the money is and all that sort of stuff, flip that script and just weirdly get into woodworking, which he had no experience in, and start a business and be successful at that to some degree, not to what everyone else's idea of successful is, but to his own version of success, which is, I think, the most important part.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, I mean, I saw that as super valuable for people, especially a lot of people that are struggling. Like we in the maker community are really, really good at supporting each other. But what I found is through interviewing all these people, is everyone's suffering from the same thing. They're suffering from failure to start. They're suffering from, feelings of like comparison. They're suffering from, mental sickness. They've got disabilities. They've got chips on their shoulders. All these things are holding a lot of these people back, and that's what I kind of want to shed light on with what I do on my podcast. So, yeah.
For me, that's been, I mean, quite an important thing that I've seen throughout from the very start of your podcast. When you first started out, you have not shied away from talking about mental health, mental fitness, including sharing some of your own struggles. And I'd like to thank you for that, because there's not enough people doing that. And it's good to see people doing it. And I think in the maker community, we are getting better about that. There are people who are kind of sort of sharing their stories, sharing their struggles. And I think you're right. There are a lot of people who kind of do suffer from those issues of comparisonitis, those difficulties of maybe wanting to give up a job they're unhappy with, to take on potentially their own business and move forward, and the struggles with that, particularly if they're also trying to support a family. I think it's good that these conversations are happening, and more of these conversations are happening.
Well, it's interesting because I think a lot of people are really struggling, but they don't know they're struggling. Like they think they're just playing the game, right? Of just turning the wheels over and keeping it moving, and they don't realize they're destroying themselves. They're coming to a point where they're just gonna hit the wall, and that's what I'm finding out a lot from these people I'm talking to, and too from the massive amount of like messages I get from people. I got a message. I got a comment on the YouTube version of my show, and it was a guy just saying like, "Thank you. I needed to hear this. Like, this was a great episode. Like, if it wasn't for this episode, my life would be miserable. And I can see the silver lining now. And I think that, like, for me, that's what it's all about. That one comment, that one guy, literally says, this show turned my life around for me. Thank you. Like, what more could you want from a show but to help people? So
such a powerful compliment as well.
Yeah, and I mean, weirdly, as much as I, drudge, doing the podcast sometimes because it's a lot of work. I put a lot of work into it. When I get comments like that, or just DMs or something from people, it really makes a difference, and really keeps me going and gives me motivation to know I'm on the right path and doing the right thing, by people as well. So, and I'm happy because I mean, people always will need that one person to like blaze the trail for them, and give them that information, and I'm happy to be that person.
Yeah, and it's a good position to take. I mean, I totally agree with you in terms of that. I mean, for me, that from when I was teaching, when you get particularly towards the end of a term, late in the year, when you're tired and like Christmas and the evenings are dark, you're arriving at work in the dark, you're leaving in the dark, you're not seeing daylight, and you're tired, you've been working long hours, and some kid going, I really get that now, or sort of suddenly going, I'm really enjoying this subject now. Those little things can be a really good motivator for kind of going, yeah, actually, that's worth it. All the hassles, all the hard work, it's worth it for that kind of little switch. I guess it's probably a dopamine hit, isn't it? Where kind of we've got that. I'm going to take it on. We're going to accept that actually, yeah, the hard work's been worth it, and somebody's benefited from it. And we don't always know. I think sometimes the problem is we don't always know that people are. So I think it's great now with kind of sort of social media that actually people can go, that made a difference, and I'm glad that you put that. I'm glad you said these things. Yeah.
Well, they say I think it's 1% comment. So if you think about that, like, and it's so the way I think about it is, that one comment is like one of like 100 people that actually got a lot from it. Do you know what I mean? So like,
Yeah.
People don't like to comment. People don't like to go out of there, even though they literally walked away from something they heard and were blown away by it, and it changed their life. I myself sometimes don't. I don't write a DM to that person. I don't sometimes write on comments and say that's amazing. Thank you for changing my life. Sometimes it takes me days after seeing something or absorbing the information. But like, oh shit, that was great. So the way I see it is like, you only get feedback when you've really hit home to that person, but you've hit home to majority of your audience, because you can see that. I mean, if you're going to look in the analytics, you can see how long people are listening for and you're holding their attention for, if it's hitting home. And I see in majority of my podcasts, not that I'm blowing my own trumpet there, but I've got a decent retention rate, which is great for me, because I see that the episodes that are a little bit dodgy, let's just say that, where sometimes I can't steer the guest to go sort of hold the line, I guess you'd say, of hold the topic. You see in the analytics, it just goes, people just drop off.
Yeah.
Because they just don't have the patience. So you need, when you're not providing value for someone, the analytics just drop off, and people just can't afford the time. We are so bombarded with so much stuff. Like, how do we choose? How do we choose to sit here and watch the Maker's Waffle over all the other stuff that we have, on YouTube or on Instagram or wherever it is, like on normal TV? Like, there's still crazy amount of shows coming out on streaming networks. Like, everything is
too much that you could never consume it all in 10 lifetimes.
Yeah, I mean, everyone's struggling for attention. So, you've got to find your little audience, and then when you find that, like, it's, that's the important thing. Like, not taking over the world. Like, seems to me like most people like, oh, I'm gonna be a YouTuber, or I'm gonna be a podcaster and take over the world. Like, that's not how it works. Like
that's why we've set our bar so low. Just pick up all the stragglers from everyone else.
I thought we were going after Joe Rogan. I thought we were going for the big time. I'm waiting for Spotify to send us that 7-figure deal. Yeah,
I know, right? Wouldn't that be hilarious? Like, you all of a sudden, Maker's Waffle just goes, and everyone's like, Jamie, Andy, they're the best.
Just get random people on and just talk for hours.
I'm willing to give it a go. Yeah, if they want to reach out.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, what's your budget though? That's where's your limit? Like, how many millions is it going to take?
If they can give me one, I'd be quite happy to start with. Yeah, for the first year.
Yeah,
two for the second year.
Yeah. I'm not going.
But,
I'm not,
walked into that one.
Yeah, I'll take 10. Just,
I mean, that's fair. You've got the bigger the audience, and you put more work in than we do. So.
I was going to say I'll take 10 of Andy's. Like,
You've had quite a lot. You've had quite a lot of guests, and you've had some deep conversations with those guests.
So
We've
deep.
talked about how other people have reached out and gone. That's been really, really good. Have you picked up things from some of your guests? Is there have there been some kind of conversations you've had where you've kind of walked away and gone, "Ooh, yeah, I need to think about that. I need to take that on board for myself."
Yeah, 100%. A lot of the things though that I find is like I'm always halfway there because like those things that they say don't often come up in general conversation unless you are kind of like on the same path, if you know what I mean. So, for a lot of the stuff that we're talking and that I'm interested in, I'm like, hey, that that struck a chord with me is because I was halfway thinking that way already. So, um, it's a really interesting thing to talk with people. Like I noticed, like when I spoke with the Maker Monster Jake Waldron,
Yeah.
I realized that like he and I were extremely similar. Like the way we thought, the way we function, the way we saw the world. So, I realized like, oh, I got something to learn off this guy because he reads more books than me, and he's always picking up more information. So, we chat once a month or so just to like check in, like, hey, what are you reading? Like, that's interesting. And a lot of it's got to do with self-development, and being a better version of yourself. That's a big thing that I'm focused on. So often I suck up a lot of that information and learn things like that from people. Of course, there's always these talented people that are really great at their crafts, and often that's what first sort of attracts me to them in the first place. A lot of these guys either have interesting stories or they're really fantastic at what they do, and then often those I like to find out those stories because people that are often very good at what they do generally have got their shit sorted out, if you know what I mean. So, you've got something to learn from them, like how did they sort their shit out? Like we're all struggling to put our pants on the right way, most of the time, right? And these guys are like somehow being super creative and making amazing work and balancing all the other shit that's in life. And they're doing that. So I got something to learn off these guys. So, that was a weird waffling answer to your question, but yeah.
Perfect for the platform.
We do. It's what we do. It's what we do well. Yeah.
We're sort of teasing out that destructured kind of conversation from going away from that kind of like military precision of the make ideas reality to just kind of total carnage of whatever falls out of your mouth.
Oh god, I was actually thinking about military stuff just today. I was preparing for just in case you had that one question where you did ask me like, so how did you get into making, or how did you do? I was like, oh, how do I fucking tell this story? Like, all right, so then I was thinking about all the submarine stuff and all that sort of stuff. So.
I mean, that's the thing is, that's something you've discussed on your podcast before. So it's a perfect opportunity for us to sort of say, you are the Garage Avenger. You have a podcast that people need to go and listen to. For any of the people who've made it here and made it this far and not heard of you yet.
I don't think that's many. Not that I'm blowing my own trumpet, but I think like most of the people watching this are probably already listening to my podcast because we're the same group of people. They all kind of.
That's why we never bother introducing our guests. We just kind of start rambling and hope someone figures it out.
Because on the most part, they've been on podcasts already, and so people can go and listen to the interview podcast to find out about the people and what their history and their background. Because that's the easiest thing to do. It's not what we do. Yeah, it's.
Who's this bearded git on the? Bloody Garage Avenger.
Weird
What the
one.
fuck?
There's three of them here. So
Uh,
I suppose we should actually acknowledge that um, and thank you for your podcast, because we entirely stole one of your ideas of having a special at regular intervals. So we've taken it on that every 10 episodes we're doing, like, a special episode, much the
Yeah.
same way that you do with yours. So you sort of put that seed in our head, and we totally stole it for us.
Yeah.
well, I think I stole it from someone else, to be quite honest. Not every 10 episodes, but it was something like, it was once in a while they would have their own sort of focus on what was going on with them. But I think it was interesting because I never really wanted to make it like a filler, if you know what I mean. I never really wanted to be like, oh shit, I don't have a guest this week. I'll just talk shit for on my own podcast this week, and see if I
See if anyone
always
listens.
I always wanted to give like some sort of point of view or a value. Again, going back to that point, like that was always my aim. I wanted to share my story to some degree, of what I'm going through and the journey that I'm on, so that people can also get context. And if they can relate to that, they can relate to it. If they can't, they can't. So, but I try to think about the guys that are listening, and they're all guys like yourselves, and all creatives, all wanting to be better at what they do to some degree, and one thing that I think I'm lacking though is building up like a community around the podcast, if you know what I mean, on the outside of the podcast. So that's one thing I think I could definitely work on in the future. But we're all kind of the same type of people. We're all trying to just create something that we have miraculously floating around in our minds, and sometimes we have a lot of things that are holding us back. So yeah.
I think it's that willingness to share, though, isn't it? Because one thing that I'm old. I've been in a lot of different communities. I've been in all sorts of different communities, and the maker community that kind of I've been part of now for I kind of want to say sort of 5 years, 4 or 5 years. It's been probably one of the most unique communities that I've been part of in several ways. That willingness to support each other isn't unique to it. It's something I have seen elsewhere, but perhaps the willingness to share difficulties, to share, talk about the number of people. I mean, we've had quite a few conversations on Maker's Waffle with people talking about things like ADHD and kind of how that's affected people, and maybe the prevalence of ADHD within the maker community. And there's been conversations in the background about things like that and other things, and that willingness to maybe talk about mental health. Now, I don't know if that's just a coincident with a willingness over the last 5-6 years to talk about mental health across the kind of the board of society. I'm not overly convinced that it is, but I think the maker community maybe is kind of more willingness to talk about, more willing to talk about and share things like that. And I don't know if that's just maybe a reflection of the types of people that are in the maker community and who've kind of joined the community to participate in it. Because I think there's elements of the maker community that I would say us three and all our previous guests are in, the people who maybe put stuff out, the people who've joined those little groups of people who share ideas, share their making, to be with other makers, not just to share it with the general public and the further kind of outer reaches of the maker community.
There's definitely a high prevalence of neurodiversity, I think, sort of in general. Maybe that is part and parcel of it. If if you're sharing things and you're neurodivergent and you recognise it in other people, maybe that is that sort of
That brings people in.
brings
Well,
brings
I think we're all weirdos. Like
absolutely,
everyone's
yeah.
like, but we're very good in this community is to like to come together and like accept that
Mm,
that Jamie guy is super weird, like and Andy guy is super weird, but I like it,
yeah.
Well, it's
and
like
we're not.
Berkey's t-shirt, isn't it?
Well,
You're
Mm,
weird, but I like you.
like, yeah, and weirdly enough, it is a very Jamie and Andy thing to be weirdos, because actually me and the other Jamie, and then Andy and the other Andy, you know, all four of us are probably equally weird.
well, I find it really hard to like be social around non-makers because
Mm.
you just can't talk with them. Like my neighbor. I'm at my neighbor's house and they're talking about buying this new electric car, and I'm like, whatever, I don't care. Like,
But what
it's
do you
just
make?
a
Yeah.
yeah. Like, what do you make, or what gives you a lot of drive in life? What's exciting for you? Like, all you seem to talk about is just buying shit. Like, why? That just doesn't make any sense. Like, but at the same time, people don't understand why I would make something. Like they don't understand that concept. Like, why would you make it when you can just buy something similar to it in China for like nothing?
Yeah,
But they don't understand it's not about the end product. It's about the learning process and the journey of having this crazy idea, making it reality. And that's essentially what my podcast came from. That whole process. And yeah, I mean, it's really hard for me to connect with people. It's just always feel like I'm on the outside, like I'm this weird guy that makes stuff and like is on YouTube and on the YouTube, people like people are just so funny, and you know they don't have time for like or interest in what I do. So and I guess it goes the same way for me. Like I don't have interest in you know football and fancy cars and things like that. Like that doesn't interest me at all. If, however, though, like you loved working on cars and you loved
totally different
fixing
type of
cars,
person, isn't it?
completely different,
Yeah.
right? But if you just buy cars and buy things, then it's really hard for me to understand you. And well, I understand you, but it's really hard for me to connect to you and like get on a different level. So like I noticed when I went to Make Essential, that was really great for me because I was like, hey, I'm surrounded by weirdos just like me. I was like, I couldn't believe it. I came back and my wife just looked at me and she's like, what happened? You seem so like alive and lively. I was like, yeah, it was weird because on the train ride back to the airport, I was crazy depressed because I was like thinking, oh, it's over. This is over. This experience, like, I'm never going to see these guys ever again, or it'll be a year at least till I see some of them again.
Mm.
And it turned out fucking Corona came and then ruined that all, didn't it? Jerk.
But that was quite. I remember you saying. I'm pretty sure I've heard you say a couple of times. You basically went to make Essential, not really knowing anyone.
I knew nobody. I
So
knew.
that was quite that was quite a bold thing to do in a way. Then.
Well, I knew a guy called Hans Meyer. He's was one of the first guests on my podcast, and yeah, like I met him through. I think he had commented on Laura Kampf's post or something, and I just clicked on his profile, and then I saw there was some videos and stuff from Oslo, which is the capital city here, and I was like, oh, is he Norwegian? So I just reached out and I was like, "Hey, I'm also weird and like making stuff." I think I literally wrote that, like, "Hey, I'm also weird and like making stuff. Uh, weird thing to ask, but do you want to like meet up someday or something like that for coffee?" And yeah, he's like, "Yeah, I work at the School of Architecture in Oslo. Come see me." So I was like, "Yeah, all right." So I went and met this complete stranger I've never met before, and we had coffee for about 7 hours, and then we had booked flights and hotels to make a central by the end of it. So like I think that again, like I didn't know anybody. Like I knew that guy who I met him and spent 7 hours with him drinking coffee and walking around Oslo a little bit. And then, and then we booked a hotel room together.
Hoping he's not a psychopath. Yeah.
Yeah, basically. And then it was an amazing experience because then I went to Make Essential and I would introduce myself, and they would say, "Oh, hi, I'm Lars," and I was like, "Lars? That sounds like a Norwegian name. Are you from Norway?" And he's like, "Yeah, I live in Larvik, or I live in the." I was like, "What the hell?" I like all of a sudden meet all these Norwegian people in
Loads of them.
Birmingham.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's a great experience, and I also, of course, met a lot of the UK guys as well, and some of the American guys as well. So it was a really great experience for me, and I literally probably up until uh, that meeting with that guy Hans Meyer, I didn't really know what a maker was. I didn't know the term actually maker.
Mhm.
So it was only a couple of months before I went to Makers Central that I actually knew what a maker was, even though I was, I guess, technically a maker already, but I just didn't
Yeah.
know. I couldn't name it. And it also makes me think there's a lot of people just like me who never found that one person, who never reached out to that one person in a message and said, "Hey, I also make weird shit." It's like, "Oh, you should meet up. Oh, there's a thing called the maker community. You should check that out." Like there's probably thousands and thousands of us out there like that, who just don't know there's a
I
community
really
exists.
believe that. I think there's probably a huge number. Probably the majority.
Mm.
I mean, one of the things that often bounces around in my head is kind of, and I've talked about this before, is kind of a three-dimensional Venn diagram of how makers fit together, and kind of where the kind of term maker fits, or what the maker community is, and the different types of maker within the community and how they link together, and those that kind of do social media, those that just absorb social media, but the majority of people don't really get involved with social media, aren't that engaged with it, but there's an awful lot of makers out there. I think if you go in the there's the Men's Shed organization,
Yeah.
for example, which is mostly older gentlemen, it often kind of on their own, often widowed or kind of retired, and they kind of need some aspect. 95% of them do not even have any kind of social media account. Never mind, they might occasionally watch a bit of YouTube, but they probably don't have an account for it.
Yeah.
But they're makers, and they wouldn't call themselves a maker. They wouldn't know that. They wouldn't necessarily know. And some of those people are just and make amazing things. They're
Yeah.
stupidly talented, and it might be
Yeah.
something completely unique. Like kind of cuckoo clocks or some such thing.
Someone's got to make them.
Exactly.
Well, I mean, it's
And
interesting because I went to like my one of my day jobs is working with like kids, and we were running like a school holiday activity, and we went to this like small, what do you call it, like a cultural center, and there was like these two sheds. One was a woodworking shed and one was a blacksmithing shed, and it was full of old guys, like, and they loved it.
yeah,
Like they breathed and loved this craft. I was like, these guys, they don't know what a maker is. They just know that they're making a knife or they're making a, this or that, like and they like doing that with a bunch of similar guys, that get together once a week, heat up the forge and whack a couple of, you know, bits of metal. It's for them. It definitely. I see that there's all these people that exist that just could be part of our community and contribute immensely to it as well, but they just don't know. And I think that's why it's important that we talk to people all the time, even people we don't think would understand what we do, because all of a sudden they'll mention, oh, I know this guy, he's a weirdo, he makes stuff in his garage, but he's just like you, Dad, like, or something like that, right?
Well, I wonder how
So
many people, given the struggles we have in interacting with, the normal, in air quotes there, maybe there are loads of these people who are just, hiding away in their sheds,
100%.
completely oblivious to the world, in exactly the same way that the world is oblivious to them. Maybe in like every housing estate, there's one guy in his shed making something, and I say guy, one person in their shed making something, oblivious to the world around them, but also surrounded by people who have no idea that they make stuff.
yeah, because they don't tell anyone, right? It's their own
Yeah.
little, and maybe they go to like a meetup thing where maybe they make little model boats and stuff and sail them on the lake or something, right? But their model boats are amazing. That little group of men, or group of people sailing the little boats on the lake probably know him, but besides that, no one knows this guy's skill. And I wonder what we could do in regards to the community to open it up to allow people like that to know there's people around that want to support them in what they do.
And want to learn from them too.
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah. Yeah, because I think YouTube is a really good avenue, but of course, not everyone's willing to go on there. Not everyone's looking to look. I met a elderly, well, not elderly, but he's probably about 10, 15 years older than me. He found me on YouTube, and he's like, I live like 15 minutes away. I've got some pneumatic stuff. Do you want it? I was like, yeah, free stuff. Hells yeah. So I drove to his house, and he was a lovely guy, and he just kept on filling my car up with stuff. And he's like, oh, I got this lying around. Do you want it? And I'm like, are you sure? Because like I came here to pick up some pneumatic stuff, and now you're shoving like small anvils into my back of my car. So
Driving down the road like
yeah, yeah, yeah. So
Tires rubbing on wheel arches. Yeah.
I think there's people like that exist, but again, I think my experience. I was lucky to find that one guy who had also I guess the balls to reach out and say, hey, do you want some stuff? Because I've got it lying around. Because a lot of people that would never do that. They would never reach out and say like, hey, do you need a hand? Or like, I would seriously, like if someone wanted to spend time with me in my workshop, like, please just come. Like, I would love someone to talk to and talk shit to whilst I'm making stuff. Like, if you can hold a camera as well, like, awesome.
Even better.
What you
Like,
said is you want an intern to film with you. That's what you're actually after.
Yeah, let's be honest. No, I think like if you want to be around someone that that is inspiring for you, then then go do it. That's my point. Is like, so there may be people that look at what I do and look up for me. I don't know why, but there may be. And like I would want them, if they were inspired enough, to like say, hey, do you need some help? Because I like, what person doesn't need help in this day and age in what they do, especially with all the social media stuff that goes out all the time. If you want to be like making an impact, I'm not going to say building a following, because that's not what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to make an impact. you know, I think that's important. I think that's important to have the resources to make sure you can make that impact. And if I can teach someone what I know, the very little what I know, at the same time as they can help me, then I think it's a win-win situation. But um, I think again, like finding those people that are interested enough and are willing to give you the time, it's really hard. So I did think about putting out a like a ad on in the newspaper here, like like a ridiculous stupid ad, like social media fucking like influencer, bullshit intern or something,
Requires
right?
intern. Yeah.
Man
I
has
bet if you
tools
did,
at this
you'd get,
address.
you'd
Will
get some
will
response.
will pay in sawdust.
Has
Sawdust
own
and
ice
bushes.
bath.
Yeah. So will serve cold drinks on voice command.
I mean,
Yeah.
as taking that as a good segue. I mean, you take on some. You don't hold back on going for big projects, do you?
I know I'm so stupid. I really I
Was
just
that reading between the lines there?
oh no way. I'm just sometimes I just like I think, why are you doing this, Justin? Like you are an idiot. Like what? You now want to overcomplicate it even more? Like
Well, I mean, here's the question then. Off the back of that is, do you think of a project, then think, why the hell am I doing this, and then tell everyone, or do you think of a project, tell everyone, and then go, shit, why did I do that?
I think it's the first. I often just I what happens is it comes with I have an idea that's really simple. And then I think, nah, it's too simple. I need to add some like cool shit on it and then or make it look cooler or whatever it is. And that's what ends up being the issue is like I shoot myself in the foot all the time. Like why would I okay, so I had this as you guys probably know who follow me, I'm building this sushi train thing, right? So
Yeah.
why am I building a sushi train like in the first place? Well,
I mean, why
I
not?
yeah, exactly. Why not? But I wanted to fix the Norwegian arm, and so to give you an explanation, what the Norwegian arm is in Norway, they're very they think it's impolite to ask for things at the dinner table. So like they don't want to, encroach on your dining or whatever you want to call it, even though you're all friends, right? So it's like it's the opposite of polite in the way we grew up. So that's the way they think is polite. So at the dinner table, so they'll literally stand up and reach across the table and grab things, or they'll reach across your plate and like and or reach across your face with an arm, like like it's crazy and I just hate it. So that is why I'm building this, because it's the only thing that I could think about that could stop the Norwegian arm from reaching out, because the things would go on a conveyor belt and come around to you when you need it, of course. So but why like what did I do? Like Kristen said to me, like, oh, my wife Kristen, she's like, well, we can't spend any money on this project, and so that ruined everything for me, because I was just gonna buy a whole heap of shit online and then be done with it, and you know, but then I had to start realizing, okay, well, I have to use what I got. So all of a sudden, I'm looking at my electronics. I'm like, I don't have any motors, so okay, then what do I have to do here to make this work? And so eventually what happened is, I ended up making this thing, with like a Wi-Fi connected thing with an app control, because I just, with all this stuff that I had lying around, but it's so complicated. It's literally a conveyor belt that goes round and round. but I can stop and start it on my phone and forward and back and slow it down and all this stuff because one, I thought it was cool, and thought it would be worth the challenge, and then two, like I'm stupid and I just love pain, and that's so I just continue to build stupid things. So,
I mean, at least you know it's going to be a unique project on YouTube. It's not something that's going to be in the mix with 1,000 other examples of the same thing.
well, that isn't that all my projects.
I was just about to say, yeah.
That's why I don't have millions of views because no one can find them because they're just so weird. Like who makes a nose picker out of a wooden carved hand and a bolt picker grabber thing? Like, oh my god, what was I thinking?
Yeah, no fidget spinners and tensegrity tables. Yeah.
No fidget spinners. Although I have this great idea to make a couple of things that I think might go okay on YouTube or whatever, but I doubt it. Let's be honest, because knowing my videos, they'll turn from a real simple idea to like a crazy, overcomplicated thing that just does everyone's head in. Like, why did he do it like that? Like, he should have just gone and bought something for like pennies, and that would have done the same job. Like, why did he spend 6.5 months developing this thing that spins? Like,
It's
so
the
I
difficulty,
think
isn't it, when you open up something like AliExpress and you go, oh, there's the thing I wanted to make. Or I can just tick all these other boxes here and then just buy all of the stuff for 10 times the price and then spend like 6 months building the thing that I could have bought for a tenner or something there.
I have to say though, with having those restrictions on, for example, the sushi train build is like it's really great because you become a lot more creative.
Yeah.
You find better solutions to problems you never would have had to solve doing it another way. So like, yeah, the big one that I realize is like, okay, well, I have no money, but I need bearings for this thing to roll around on. And then, okay, well, I stole these 1 krona coins from my daughter's piggy bank. So they look like, because they got a hole in the middle of them, right? And so I was like, oh, I can just put a screw in there and it's like a wheel. That'll work. So what do I do? Like, it's actually 1 krona, but I worked out that which is about 10 pence, I think, maybe 20 pence, so I worked out that it was actually cheaper to buy, like, just to get the krona coin and use the krona coin as a wheel rather than go and buy something or make something, that does the same job. So I just pretty much blasted out on social media like, hey, has anyone got some 1 krona coins that just got lying around? And then like the next day I get a knock on the door at 7 o'clock in the morning. One of my son's friend's dads knocked on the door and he's like, yeah, I had this lying around. Kadoosh! Like 300 kronas in coins, like boom. And like I was just driving around. I dropped my wife off at work, and we met this lady we knew, and she's like stopped and she wound the window down, and she's like, "Hey, Justin, here!" And she just handed her hand out, and there was like 5 kronas, and she just gave it to me. So I didn't spend any money on that build, but I may have made some money.
I mean, maybe this is the way to do it. Maybe blast it out on social media. It's like, the next material I need just happens to be £20 notes.
Yeah.
Has anyone got any, kind of lying around that they don't need?
In Norway, they're all rich, so they could all give me a couple of 20s, surely.
Yeah, I mean, everything costs £100 in Norway, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Go for a coffee, £100. Buying an anvil, yeah, £100.
So are these people that all kind of they've given you these krona coins, all people that know that you're a YouTuber, that you're weird and a bit mad and doing these crazy projects?
Yeah, I think a lot of them follow me on Facebook and Instagram. So a lot of them are like local in this little township we live in, and I think they all know I'm different, right? They all know, like, know, and they don't say anything because that's the way it is here. Like you don't say anything, but I think they secretly like championing me. Like they're like those guys that'll be like, all of a sudden something happens and I get like this viral video or some shit, right? And then, or my podcast explodes or whatever it is, like something happens and I get big and they're like, oh yeah, I know that guy. Yeah, I know. Like there'll be those people, that, but they'll never say it to me ever, ever. Like in my like, they'll just go around saying, oh, you know that Justin guy? He lives like, across the road from me. Like I know him. Like, but like but it's super nice of everyone here, to support me when I do ask for things. I think that's it's being open and who you are is why that comes. Like if you were like recluse and you didn't tell everyone and didn't show everyone what you were doing, then you wouldn't get, like, if you just randomly put out a blast on social media and say, have you got any 1 krona coins, no one would come to the table.
Yeah.
No,
I think it's important to show people what you're doing on a daily basis so they get invested in you and they understand really what you're about and why you're doing it. Like I think a lot of people don't understand why I'm doing it, but they're intrigued enough about what I'm doing and sort of championing me to keep on going and do something with that. So yeah, that was a waffle, wasn't it? Jesus, guys.
It's interesting actually because like Andy and I experienced something very similar recently, a wedding that we were both at, and it was a group of makers there, and then sort of the other 80% of the wedding party were normal people, professionals with high-end jobs or normal humans with normal jobs
Normal.
and normal
Yeah,
lives and stuff.
yeah.
And a number of occasions where people were just kind of cautiously approaching us, either individually or as groups, and just kind of walking up going, are you makers? Are you the makers that we've heard about? What is this making stuff? What do you mean you make things? Tell me about it. I want to learn what this like making thing is. There's an innate curiosity, I think, in a lot of people to just like, what do you mean you can buy things at a shop and turn them into a thing that I could maybe buy or maybe not buy? Something. Take a normal thing and make it different or add functions or things like that. It seems to just be this magical dark art to a lot of people.
Well, I think that's one thing is interesting because I remember, I'll never forget. Like when I was making the voice controlled sofa beer fridge, I I I brought, like, my son was having a birthday, and there was a whole bunch of dads there, and they were like super awkward. And one of the dads ended up saying to me like, "Oh, I saw you were building this thing. What is it?" And so I'm like, "Oh, it's hard to explain. I'll take you down. I'll show you." So we trundled down to the garage, but then of course there came like 4 other dads with us, and I opened up the garage and I was sort of explaining what I was doing, and then randomly this one dad just goes, "Why would you make this?" And I was like, it was super awkward. Like everyone was like, it was funny because I think everyone kind of thought the same, but he
Yeah.
was the only one that said it, and I just sort of said it because I can. I didn't have an answer to him because I'm
Standard
like,
maker answer, isn't it? Yeah.
yeah,
I
because
want
like,
to. It doesn't exist.
yeah,
I can't because I can't buy one.
yeah. No one can buy a voice-controlled sofa beer fridge that I know of, at least, anyway.
I mean, you must have a price, surely. If someone's got the funds there to come to you and offer you a large sum of money, surely.
I tried to sell it. but no one wants it because they're just scared. I don't like it. You what? You can yell at your sofa and it delivers a beer to you on voice command. What the? Like it's the devil. I don't know. I think it's a bit. Yeah, it's a big investment. I guess people just.
Mm.
I mean, I'm sure it has its problems. I don't. I don't have it. Like I built it for a friend of mine, so he's got it. But then long story short, but he's had to move it into storage, so it's not being used at the moment. And he said like, should we just sell it? And I said, all right, we'll try and sell it. And yeah, I think I've got about 30,000 kroners on it, so that's uh, about about 4,000 pounds, something like
Mm.
that. So not heaps of money, but not like super cheap either. Um, so I mean, no one wants it because no one also understands the year and a half of pain that I went through to build
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Like, I threw myself down a mountain for that bloody sofa. So, you know, literally, I threw myself down a mountain. Um, which I have to say, I don't know if you guys saw that video, but that was just, I think that was just my way of expressing the pain and anguish that that project was inflicting on me at the time. It was, you know,
It's a fair reaction, I think.
Yeah.
yeah.
Where's the sushi bar going to fit on the scale of sofa fridge? Yeah. Going to be
Well,
worse, or is it going to be not as bad?
no, I think it's not. It's not going to be as bad. Um, but I think I've done a lot of things that I didn't want to do in this project. I've had to, lower my morals, and I've had to do things for other makers to get things done and helped with projects. You'll see in the video at some point when that comes out eventually. What I've had to do, bad things, and yeah, I mean that will mentally scar me for the rest of my life. But the project, I hope, won't. I hope the project will be something I'll look at like, yeah, that was cool little project or big project that I made. Because it's literally, yeah, I think it's about 1.5 meters long, and yeah, so it's not exactly tiny. You can't just exactly hide it anywhere in the house. Like it's kind of gonna make a statement there. But
Yeah, which is
yeah,
fair.
yeah,
Have
I
you got
think that.
plan?
Sorry, you
Go
go.
on. Well, I was just going to say, have you got? Yeah, that's obviously something you're going to get finished off. Hopefully, not too distant in the future. Do you already know what's going to be next?
Yeah, I gotta start on my Fools with Tools treasure trade. I
Good shout.
think
Yeah, you got
yeah,
limited time on that one as well. You got
I
a
know.
time dead limit.
I know I'm screwed because last time I made it, it was chaos. Like literally, I'm like putting paint on it with the last 6 hours of it. Like I was literally putting it in the box wet with wet paint on. Like I was like, you idiot, Justin, what have you done?
God, it's not
Mind
just
you,
me.
mind you, when the guy opened it up, he's like, his reaction was amazing. Like we did a Zoom chat, and he's like, it's the most thoughtful thing anyone has ever made for him, ever.
Mm.
And and he's like, that goes including my family. Like they don't even know how much. Because I don't know if you saw it, but I made a whale shark that
Yeah, sorry.
moves. Yeah, and he was, I read, so I did some research into this guy, and I found out that he had this real affinity to this aquarium, which has quite a few whale sharks swimming in it, and so when he realized that I'd made this because of it actually meant a lot to him. He pretty much started crying on our Zoom chat because I don't think he's had anyone understand him as a human being. And I just picked that off Instagram pretty much. I just spent my time researching him, trying to understand this person from Instagram posts, which is really hard. But like I went through every single post and I read everything he wrote, and I saw this common pattern coming up about how he feels safe and tranquil when he's watching these fish swim around in this giant aquarium. I forget where the aquarium is now, but I think it's I've forgotten now, somewhere a couple of hours drive from him. But and so I decided that's what the project was going to be, because it meant so much from him. He's talked about this, so I wanted to, being that it was Corona times, I wanted him to have that ability to kind of stare at this janky mechanical whale shark, and transport himself, at least mentally, to that aquarium again, because I thought that was important. So yeah, I'm looking forward to this year's treasure trade, because I haven't done my investigation yet into this guy that I've got to make it for. So I've got to dig deep and try and do as good of, if not better, job as last year, and somehow fit it into a shoebox,
Yeah.
because it was a tight squeeze last time. It was like, I'm pretty sure I added like tape and like added edges, so it was just a bit bigger. And and
Very
I got
large pair of shoes. Yeah.
Yeah, very.
yeah,
very big
I got
shoes.
I got the box was a gumboots box. It was a shoe box, surely. Like it was
So many feet came in a box. Close enough.
yeah. So yeah, I think I have to not up my game, but at least make it as good as last year. So I think I got my work cut out for me. That's for sure.
Yeah, there's quite a few makers too. The next few weeks are going to be a frantic time of, oh no, what am I going to make? How am I going to make it? And get it done in the time limit, sent off for the deadline, and hopefully then, fingers crossed, it survives the sort of transit to wherever it's got to go.
I'm thinking I might have to put Sushi Train on hold to get this finished. Actually, it might be just one of those things that I just have to do. So, but we'll see. We'll see. I want to get the Sushi Train finished, just because it's nice to just move forward in projects. This one has been sort of on and off for the last year, nearly. Started it, I think maybe January. Yeah, I think January I started it officially.
I mean, the last 18 months has been it's been a weird blur anyway. I think you can quite easily cut 12 months off that list and just say you've only been at it for a few months, and no one would really know.
Yeah, but my wife, she decided she wanted a bloody freaking house out the back, so I had to build a house. So I've done that as well. So it's not like I've been sitting around doing nothing.
Exactly.
My wife,
Give yourself a break.
yeah, I'm trying, but it's hard. Yeah.
Well, that sounds like something that's been grabbing your attention. I'm aware that you've got work in the morning, so we're not going to kind of waffle foot until the early hours of UK time. Never mind.
You're just asleep.
So that sounds like something that's been getting your attention. Obviously, Full to Tools Treasure Trade, that's grabbing your attention. But anything else been kind of sort of grabbing your attention lately? Whether that's stuff you're working on or stuff that kind of you've seen and it's made you go, "Oh, I like that,"
or read, or listened to, or
Yeah, I mean, I just finished Nick Offerman's new book. It was interesting in the way that he was like self-deprecating through the whole thing, which was funny. but it made me realize a lot about the way we live and how unsustainable it is, in the long term, at least anyway, and that probably we as human beings, not corporations, are gonna have to make the change. So that was interesting. Um, but I think the main thing that's caught my interest is I've been very focused about storytelling. I've started to realize that like storytelling is probably the most important thing you can do, with regards to like making stuff and explaining what you're making to people. So a lot of my new video like formats are changing because of that, and even the podcast format as well. So I read a book called Storyworthy. It has this crazy long title. I'm not going to tell you the whole story, but it's the whole title, I should say. But it's called Storyworthy, and then it's by an author called Matthew Dix, and he outlines basically he's a 9 times Moth storytelling champion or something. Moth is like a storytelling competition, and it's just a verbal storytelling. They just literally stand up on stage and tell a story, but he breaks down on the fundamentals on how to tell a good story, and I've been really sort of interested in that and bringing that into all my work that I'm putting out there. So they've also got a podcast called Speak Up. So that's also interesting. Him and his wife talk about the stories that they all play a story from, for example, a moth competition, and then they'll analyze that story and see where they did well and where they didn't do well. And I think the big thing for me though is just realizing that storytelling, you can use it everywhere. Like it's not just in like you literally when you're meeting people and talking with people. I think storytelling is really important to get people's attention, if you want that attention, that is. But to cut through the noise, because a lot of people, you'll meet them and they'll just tell you like a categorized version of themselves. Then I did this and then I did that, and we've all been there. You can't help it. You just switch off, and you're just not interested, because they're not captivating your imagination or your attention. So I've got a story checklist that I now use, and I've got a whole heap of tools which I took from that book, to help me storytell better, basically. And I use that checklist mainly for my content, but I started to think about like, if I was to tell someone, like someone says, like exactly what we talked about earlier in this chat, it's like, so if someone asked me, how did you get into making, like, how do I tell that story without people just hitting the snooze button? It's true. Like, how do you tell it? And so, I was formulating using that same checklist and format, on how to tell a story. And like maybe I share something with you. Like, so on my checklist, I have something that is like like a format to follow. So with my videos, with my podcasts, sometimes, or just telling someone about who I am, if you can follow this format according to Matthew Dix, you're gonna do well to captures people's attention. So he says the first step is to know your ending. So how you're going to finish your story, and you have to have a 5-second realization moment, or like a transformation moment in the end of that story. So for example, I'll give you an example. In the sushi train, the example is that I can't change culture. culture, the Norwegian arm is here to stay. Like it's not. I by building this thing, I'm not going to change the Norwegian arm. It's going to exist for eternity here. So that is the knowing that's the ending. I have to start with the opposite of that ending, and realize like the opposite of that ending is to start with the story of I this is a problem and I'm going to fix it.
Yeah.
And then you go into there's a whole heap of other information in there, introducing the underlying storyline, outline the plan, add stakes, and then you can add in things if your story is dipping in attention. And often you can find that out yourself by watching it when you like end up, looking at something else whilst you're watching your own video or listening to your own story. You can use tools like they call it like a crystal ball, which is like a false prediction made by a storyteller to cause the audience to wonder. Or breadcrumbs, is another tool you can use. You can add a clue or a hint that may fix the problem, but it's actually a falsity because people start thinking about that clue and they think they know what the clue is, but then the clue is always an unexpected solution. So it doesn't end up being what you think it's going to be. And then the regroup and the hourglass. The hourglass is like it's a way of sort of slowing your story down to grab people's attention, bring them in to like drive home the sort of end story bit. So I'm gonna try use all those in my new video. And so I feel like that's super important if you want to be able to communicate in the mass media of today, because like there's so much stuff out there, like you got to cut through the noise. And if you can story tell, I think you're halfway there.
Well, I mean, storytelling as a pastime, it's such a fundamentally old skill for verbally communicative people. For thousands of years has been the way that we pass on information, the way that we
It's one of the things that
teach
makes us
children.
human.
Yeah, absolutely. It's such a deeply ingrained skill, or deeply ingrained thing for us to do, to develop that kind of skill that draws someone in and holds them there. I can see that the huge amount of value in that, especially for someone doing something like a podcast or a YouTube channel or anything like that, as a way of holding attention, especially to kind of play to the algorithm. If you've got high retention rates and all the rest, it's a business decision as well as it is a personal decision to be able to keep focused there.
I think for me, it's not necessarily like for analytics or anything like that. It's literally to make sure that I can drive home my point, and they get the audience gets value
impact.
from that. Yeah, make my impact, right? It's like if I can keep people on, they'll get information the whole way through, and then they get the final impact, that realization moment themselves, and they can reflect on that themselves. So that's what I want to make sure that I do in the storytelling. Unfortunately, like 99% of people are really shit at telling stories. Like we all know that one mate that just tells shit stories, and I'm one of them. Like I am one of them. So this has been a real eye opener for me to realize, like, oh crap, like I do these cardinal mistakes all the time when I'm trying to tell a story. I use thing and then, and I balls up storytelling all the time, and this has been a great way to see, like, oh wait a second, I can tell a story about literally like drinking this water, but it can leave an impact on you. Like honestly, like that's the type of storytelling effects you can have. Like literally I could tell a story. I can't tell a story because I'm shit at storytelling still. But I hopefully when
Someone can, yeah.
I could tell a story in the future about drinking this water, which would make you think twice about something and leave an impact on you. Like it could be literally starting about drinking water, but then the storytelling goes to when, I was living poor or I was stranded in the Australian bush and I had no water or, like that connection. And that's what it's all about. And getting people to reflect and see that in their own lives as well. So, yeah.
I think if we had another hour, I think we could really dig into this. I think storytelling is fundamental to teaching. I think good teachers are good storytellers, but not all teachers are good storytellers.
Yeah, I would say that
could be
too.
another discussion.
Yeah, I think too. Like, I think if we all become better storytellers, we actually will learn a lot more, and we will be better people.
Yeah,
I think everything would take a lot longer though, because a good
I don't
story
know.
tends to waffle and meander a fair way more than just bullet point facts.
Yeah, but I mean, there's not a story if it's bullet point facts. So
That's what I mean. Is
Yeah.
in the grand scheme of life, if you've got,
but maybe we would
know,
slow down. That might be a good thing for society.
well,
I
that's very
think so.
true. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think for with regards to the way I feel is like literally and you can connect too. So like I I talked about like not connecting with normal people and only with weirdos. I think that's the bridge. Like if I can
Yeah.
storytell,
Yeah.
I can get them interested in what I do.
Yeah.
But if I can't storytell, they don't give a flying fuck about what I do because they can't relate it. They can't understand it. So that's the power of storytelling, is allowing them to put themselves in your shoes and see the world from your eyes, and then they get it, and then they can get behind you. And that's what I think is powerful about storytelling, and especially if it's done right.
Yeah, definitely.
Totally. Jamie, what's been grabbing your attention?
Well, I suppose it's sort of on the theme of stories. It's a fantastic video of two YouTubers I absolutely adore anyway who collaborated. It was Tom Scott and James Hoffman. We've talked about them both before. Tom tends to do these fantastic stories about a particular thing, whether it's a piece of technology or
Obscure facts in history and geography.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And James Hoffman does a lot of stories about coffee. And they collaborated on Tom's channel for Tom to basically ask the expert and give him this big journey into the depths of coffee. So it's a half an hour video of Tom basically going to James and saying, I don't drink coffee. I don't do caffeine. I tried coffee when I was 14 and hated it. Teach me about coffee. Give me the primer. Give me the experience of what it means to enjoy coffee. So that's something that kind of hit home with me, especially like I suppose the background there is that when my wife and I got together, she was very much the tea drinker, and occasionally we'd have a cup of really cheap, crappy instant, and when she really needed that caffeine hit, and then she made herself a coffee this morning and went, "Can you make me a proper one?" It's that kind of completely ruined coffee for her by showing her what good coffee is like. So it was a video that hit home for me.
Cool.
How about you,
else?
Andy? What's been
Me? This week's mostly been about podcasts. Fools of Tools didn't have an episode this week, so myself
slightly busy, I think.
Yeah, been busy guys. Well deserved break. But previous guests Christopher Smith, Simon Harmon, and Dominic Kelly, Sneak Dante. We got together on Tuesday evening, I think it was, and kind of had a Fields for Tules kind of sort of chat for about an hour, which we stuck out as kind of, which went out on my Thoughts on the Tinkerage podcast, rather than Steve was busy with his bathroom.
From rebuilding half his house.
Yeah, so rather than sticking that on there, we've had a lot of good feedback from last week's episode with Ruth, Ali, and Lindsay. So there's been a lot with that. That's been good to hear. It was a difficult conversation, but it was good. I discovered a new podcast this week as well called Maker's Method, which I've been binging to. It's only about 15 episodes so far. A couple of prop makers. One's really into making tombstones, prop sort of Halloween type tombstones. The other one is most well known for a K-20 puppet from Star Wars. But it's been really good. Called Maker's Method. So that's been really good. And the other thing that's grabbed my attention, later this week, a friend of the podcast, Joe Whittaker, Average Joe, is going to be on TV.
He is.
Channel 4, Thursday evening. So UK, but I'm sure it'll be available at some ways rather around the world. It's called Handmade, Britain's Best Woodworker. So got recorded last year. He's been keeping it quiet because he's had to.
The bug
out in the public. So that'll be something to watch. So
that's exciting.
That.
Yeah, apparently it's like Great British Bake Off for woodworkers.
Yeah. So not quite sure how it's going to work. Whether it's a kick somebody out at the end of the week, or there was another. There's been a couple of kind of craft shows lately. There was one that was, I'm trying to remember what it was now. Might have been a jewellery one where they didn't kick people out.
Yes.
And they basically, so you saw them develop their skills. So, if you have a bad week on some of these programs, you get kicked out, but you don't actually see somebody develop their skills. So it could just be a matter of luck that you go. Your cake
finding the right
or somebody knocks it on the floor
or something.
But when you actually see people developing their skills and they're getting feedback from the judges and they're getting better because of that feedback, and then at the end, somebody goes, right, you are actually now the best. You've made progress. You've done, and you maybe didn't start out the best, but you've become the best. I like stuff like that. There was a photography one that was particularly like that. Only had 6 people in it, and that was good. So I'm not sure of the format yet, but it's got Mel Gidrock as the host. She's very funny, very intelligent. So looking forward to that. So that'll be good. And next week we have Tyler from Bear's Workshop. Week after we have Kev Sharkey. So that'll be Halloween. Yeah. Halloween in 2 weeks. So that'll be good.
So Justin, if for some miraculous reason someone is listening to this and hasn't stumbled across you at some point, where would they do so?
You can find me on all socials under Garage Avenger. You can also go to my website, garageavenger.com. But most of the time I'm on Instagram, so you can mostly check out what I do there. And that's it.
What about you've got a little podcast as well?
Yeah, I got a little podcast. It is actually little. Yeah. It is actually little. Just so you know, we're not joking. Make Ideas Reality. You can check it out on all podcast platforms if you want to check it out. It's also on my YouTube channel, Garage Avenger, if you want to watch it there as well. And we've got I think I got about 55, 60 episodes out, something like that. And if you want to listen from the beginning, if you haven't already, be my guest. You can hear the horrible audio start and and the bad interviewing in the beginning, and then you'll see hopefully I got a little bit better over the time. So
well, you are into season 2 now, effectively, aren't you? So
Yeah,
I'm calling it season 2 because I took the break, right? Yeah. So
and you have changed the format slightly as well. So you've
I changed the format a lot. Yeah. There's a lot of things that I took out A lot of things I had a lot of fun with for a little bit, and then felt good about them, but then realized, okay, well, I want to go in this direction, and yeah, so things have changed. But yeah, if you want to check that out, that'd be great. I always love more people listening to other people and getting inspired and making their ideas reality, I guess, as well. So yeah, that's it.
Which is a good name for a maker podcast. I think I like that.
Yes.
It's not as good as Make a Waffle.
We'll have to cook some. Yeah. You hoping to make it to Maker Central next year?
Yeah, we're gonna do our utmost. Even my wife wants to come now because she's just
Fantastic.
seen how good this community is for me and how amazing everyone is. So we're gonna try and get there, but push comes to shove, it'll just be me. But when husband's away in Birmingham, he can play. So
Well, we look forward to catching up. We hope you can both make it, and we'll hopefully get together.
Yeah, it's going to be great. I hopefully it will happen. That's it doesn't get delayed for the 12th time or something.
Yeah.
Crossed.
I think we're good this time. I hope so anyway.
Yeah, I hope so too. I think the biggest thing I'm just looking forward to is like meeting people face to face. I think that's. I think a lot of people don't realize how much that means if you've never really been to one of those meetups. I know it changed everything for me in how I thought about the community, how I engaged with people, and everything. So I would highly recommend, if anyone hasn't gone to an event like that, to actually go, no matter how introverted or extroverted you are. Like, I think it's valuable either way. So,
yeah,
definitely. Yeah,
I'd agree. Yeah, if you kind of you think you can't, or people wouldn't want to talk, just go, and you got nothing to lose. Absolutely nothing to lose, but absolutely everything to gain.
Yeah, 100%.
We've made some amazing friends who literally, the same as yourself, just turned up, didn't know anyone, didn't know whether they'd be able to speak to anyone, and just turned up. And there were times when there were 4 people stood together, all stood awkwardly, not wanting to speak, but just being in each other's presence, even for a couple of minutes, while you're all awkwardly kind of waving and stuff like that, is just enough to break those barriers down and make new friends.
Yeah,
and realize old friends.
And too, like, a lot of your heroes are there, and they're approachable more than you think. Like, I will never forget, because I had no idea who anyone was, right? So I'm sitting down with Jimmy DeResta and Bob Claggett at Nando's talking shit. Like, do you make stuff? Come on, like, you can't script that. That's just like, I'll never forget what Bob said. He's like, yeah, I make stuff a bit, and everyone's like sniggering, like, I had no clue.
I hear he likes to make stuff as well.
Yeah, I heard that too.
I think on that note, I think we'll say good night. Thank you, Justin, for coming along. I'm sure we'd love to have you back at some point, and we can talk some more. I'm going to read that book and we can discuss it.
Yeah, thanks for having my ramblings on your show, and
well done for sort of sticking it out despite the lack of structure.
Thanks, guys.
Right. Well, it's good night for me.
Push the button. Good night.